The text from Derek came at 2:47 a.m., which should have been my first warning. Can we talk? It's important. Coffee tomorrow? I stared at my phone screen in the darkness of my studio apartment, my younger brother Ethan asleep on the pull-out couch across the room. 6 months. That's how long it had been since Derek Chun walked out of my life. Claiming his FBI career required focus and distance from complications. I'd been a complication, a disposable one. I should have deleted the message, should have blocked his number the day he left. Instead, I found myself typing back, 10 a.m., the usual place. His response was immediate, as if he'd been waiting, staring at his phone in the dark just like me. Thank you. I promise this matters. I didn't sleep after that. By the time grey Seattle dawn filtered through my rain-streaked windows, I'd already translated 2 Russian contracts for a new client, Konstantin Volkov's import-export company. The work paid better than anything I'd gotten in months, and God knew I needed it. Ethan's insulin prescription had gone up again, and without insurance, we were drowning in medical debt that accumulated faster than I could freelance. The coffee shop was crowded with the morning rush when I arrived. Derek sat in our old corner booth, and my stomach twisted with unwanted familiarity. He looked different, thinner, with dark circles under his eyes, and a nervous energy that set my teeth on edge. The confident FBI agent I'd dated had been replaced by something jagged and desperate. Maya. He stood when he saw me, awkward and formal. Thanks for coming. I slid into the booth across from him, keeping my expression neutral. You said it was important. How's Ethan? Derek asked, which was strange. He'd never particularly cared about my brother before. Managing. I accepted the coffee he'd already ordered for me. He'd remembered oat milk, no sugar. The small gesture felt like manipulation. What do you want, Derek? He leaned forward, lowering his voice. I need to know about your current clients. Specifically, anyone Russian. My blood ran cold. Are you serious? You ghosted me for 6 months, and now you want information about my work. It's not like that. His hand reached across the table, stopping just short of touching mine. Maya, I'm worried about you. Some of the people you might be working for, they're dangerous. I translate documents, Derek. Business contracts. Shipping manifests. It's boring and legitimate. Konstantin Volkov. He said the name like a curse. You're working for him, aren't you? I kept my face carefully blank, but something must have shown because Derek's expression hardened with confirmation. Jesus, Maya, do you have any idea who that man is? A businessman who pays on time, which is more than I can say for most of my clients. I tried to stand, but Derek's hand shot out, gripping my wrist. He's not a businessman. He's brat-Russian organized crime. We've been building a case against him for 2 years. Derek's voice dropped to an urgent whisper. I need your help. Wear a wire to your next meeting. Record conversations. Help us bring him down. I yanked my hand away, anger flaring hot in my chest. You want me to spy on a client? Risk my reputation, my safety for your case. For justice, Derek corrected, his jaw tight. And because I'm asking, please, no. The word came out harder than I intended. Absolutely not. Derek's expression shifted, something cold and calculating replacing the desperation. He pulled out his phone, sliding it across the table. On the screen was a transaction record. Ethan's name, a Canadian pharmacy, insulin purchases flagged by federal customs. Buying prescription medication across international borders without proper documentation is a federal offense. Derek said quietly, I'd hate to see your brother face charges. He's so young and federal prison. You're threatening my brother. My voice shook with barely contained rage. What happened to you? I'm trying to protect you both, but his eyes told a different story. Help me with Volkov, and this disappears. Refuse, and I can't control what happens next. I stood, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Several customers glanced our way. You have 24 hours to decide, Derek said as I turned to leave. After that, I filed the paperwork on Ethan. Your choice, Maya. I walked out into the rain, my hands shaking, my mind racing. Behind me, Derek called out one last time, "He's more dangerous than you know." And now, so are you. Konstantin Volkov's office occupied the top floor of a glass building overlooking Elliott Bay, and I felt exposed the moment I stepped out of the elevator. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the grey Seattle morning, cargo ships moving like toys across the water far below. Two men in dark suits flanked the entrance security, obviously, from their stance and the barely concealed bulk of weapons beneath their jackets. Ms. Chun, a woman with platinum hair and a crisp Russian accent, appeared. "Mr. Volkov is expecting you." I followed her through an open workspace where a dozen people worked in near silence. The only sounds the soft click of keyboards and murmured phone conversations in Russian. The actual office was smaller than I'd imagined, almost minimalist. A dark wood desk, 2 leather chairs, shelves lined with books in multiple languages. And Konstantin himself, standing with his back to me, looking out at the city. He wasn't what I'd expected. I'd braced myself for someone older, heavier, with gold chains and obvious wealth. Instead, Konstantin Volkov was maybe 35, tall and lean in charcoal grey pants and a black sweater that probably cost more than my monthly rent. When he turned, I was struck first by his eyes, silver grey, like winter light on water, studying me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Miss Chun." His English was flawless, barely accented. "Thank you for coming. Please, sit." I took the offered chair, setting my laptop bag down with trembling hands. "Professional," I reminded myself. "This is just a job. Don't think about Derek's ultimatum. Don't think about the wire he wants you to wear." Konstantin settled into the chair across from me, not behind the imposing desk. And the intimacy of the arrangement made me hyper-aware of the space between us. "Shall we begin?" The documents were standard shipping manifests, containers of goods moving from Vladivostok to Seattle. Technical specifications in Russian that needed English translations. I worked mechanically, my fingers flying across the keyboard, grateful for the familiar rhythm of language. But I could feel Konstantin watching me, and my concentration kept fracturing. "You're afraid," he said suddenly, about 30 minutes into our session. Not a question. A statement. I looked up, trying to school my expression. "I'm fine, your hands are shaking." He leaned back, his gaze never leaving my face. "And you've made 3 small errors in your translation. Nothing major. But unusual for someone with your credentials." Heat crept up my neck. "I apologize. I didn't sleep well." "Why?" The directness of the question caught me off guard. "Personal issues. It won't affect my work." Konstantin was quiet for a long moment, then stood and moved to his desk. He pressed a button on his phone. "Leave us," he said in Russian. "All of you. I want the floor cleared." Through the glass walls, I watched the security men exchange glances before filing out. The platinum-haired assistant disappeared. Within 2 minutes, we were completely alone, and the silence felt heavy enough to suffocate. "Let's try again," Konstantin said, returning to his chair. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. "Why are you afraid, Maya? And please don't insult me with another deflection." My mouth went dry. "I'm not. Has someone contacted you about me?" His voice was soft, almost gentle, but his eyes had sharpened to something predatory. "Asked you questions? Made suggestions about our working relationship?" I couldn't speak. My silence was answer enough. Konstantin nodded slowly, as if I'd confirmed something he already suspected. "Your ex-boyfriend is FBI, isn't he?" "Special Agent Derek Chun, Organized Crime Division." He tilted his head slightly. "And now you're caught between us." The room tilted. "How do you—" "I know everything about the people who enter my world, Maya. Your education, your financial situation, your brother's medical needs." He paused, his gaze boring into mine. "And I know Derek Chun has been trying to infiltrate my organization for 2 years. I've been waiting to see how he'd make his next move." My heart hammered against my ribs. "I haven't agreed to anything," but he asked. And he threatened. Konstantin's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in those grey eyes. "What does he have on you?" "Your brother's insulin purchases from Canada." I stood abruptly, my chair scraping back. "I need to leave. Sit down, Maya." Not a command, but not a request either. "We're not finished." I remained standing, my legs shaking beneath me, but Constantine simply gestured to the chair with patient inevitability, as if he knew I'd eventually sit. As if he knew everything I'd do before I did it. And God help me, I sat. "I'm not going to threaten you," Constantine said, his tone almost conversational. "Threats are what weak men use when they have no other leverage. I prefer honesty, even when it's uncomfortable." He stood and moved to his desk, retrieving a manila folder that looked well-worn, as if it had been opened many times. When he handed it to me, I hesitated. "Open it," he said gently. "You deserve to know who you're really dealing with." Inside were photographs, documents, printed emails, all featuring Derek. My Derek, except I was realizing now he'd never been mine at all. There he was, having dinner with a dark-haired woman in Portland, his hand intimate on her lower back. Another photo showed him leaving a hotel with a different woman, this one blonde, her face turned away from the camera. Email exchanges where Derek discussed cultivating assets, vulnerable women with language skills or family connections to targets. My stomach turned as I read his words. The translator is emotionally isolated, financially desperate. She'll be useful once I establish sufficient attachment. "That's about you," Constantine said quietly. "Written 3 weeks after you started dating." I closed the folder, my hands numb. Why show me this? Because Derek Chun doesn't love you. He never did. You were always a means to an end. Constantine returned to his chair, his grey eyes steady on mine. He's been trying to get to me for 2 years, ever since my company outbid his family's real estate investments in a port development deal. This isn't about justice, Maya. It's about revenge dressed in federal authority. "That doesn't make you innocent," I whispered. "No," he agreed simply. "It doesn't. I'm exactly what Derek says I am. A man who operates in shadows, who built an empire on things the law doesn't approve of. But I don't lie to the people in my circle. I don't use them and discard them when they've served their purpose." He leaned forward. And I saw something flicker in his expression, something almost vulnerable, before his control reasserted itself. "I'm going to make you an offer, Maya. Work for me exclusively. Personal translator, cultural liaison, someone who understands both worlds I navigate. The salary is $200,000 a year, plus benefits." He named a figure that made my breath catch. "Your brother's medical expenses will be covered, full insurance through my company, specialist care, whatever he needs. And the issue with Canadian insulin, it disappears, permanently. In exchange for what?" My voice barely worked. "Your discretion, your loyalty, your skills." His gaze intensified. "And the understanding that, once you step into my world, you can't step back out. You'll know things, see things, become complicit in things that you can't unknow." I stood again, needing distance, moving to the windows overlooking the bay. My reflection stared back at me, pale and frightened. What if I say no? The silence behind me stretched long enough that I turned to look at Constantine. His expression remained neutral, but something colder had entered his eyes. "Then you walk out of here, and I can't protect you from what comes next." "Derek doesn't take no for an answer, you already know that. He'll file charges against your brother, use him as leverage until you break. And even if you give Derek what he wants, even if you betray me, ... double quotes." He paused, his voice dropping. "Men like him don't keep their promises. He'll use you until you're useless, then walk away." Again, "You make it sound like I have no choice." "You have a choice, Maya. You've always had one." Constantine stood, moving to stand beside me at the window, close enough that I felt his heat. "Choose the man who's lied to you from the beginning, who sees you as a tool. Or choose the man who's telling you the truth, who sees you as..." He stopped himself, jaw tightening. "Who sees your value." I looked at him then, really looked. His profile against the grey Seattle sky, the hard line of his jaw, the carefully controlled power in his stillness. He was dangerous, criminal, everything I should run from. But when I thought of Derek's smug face, his threats against Ethan, the folder full of lies and manipulation, I need time, I heard myself say. 24 hours, Constantine replied. The same deadline Derek gave you. Then you choose. I grabbed my laptop bag with shaking hands and walked toward the elevator, feeling Constantine's gaze burning into my back. As the elevator doors began to close, his voice carried across the empty floor. Choose carefully. Maya, the wolf may be dangerous, but at least you know his teeth are real. Derek was waiting outside my apartment building when I got home, leaning against his car with his FBI badge clipped to his belt like a weapon on display. The rain had started again, turning the evening streets slick and dark, but he didn't seem to notice the water soaking his shirt. We need to talk, he said as I approached, his tone making it clear this wasn't a request. I have nothing to say to you. I tried to move past him, but he blocked my path. Ethan's not home. Derek's words stopped me cold. He's in federal custody, protective of course. Just until we sort out this insulin situation. The world tilted. You arrested my brother? I'm protecting him from making things worse. But Derek's eyes were too bright, too intense, and protecting you from making a terrible mistake. Did you meet with Volkov today? I forced myself to breathe, to think past the panic clawing at my throat. That's none of your business. Everything about Konstantin Volkov is my business. Derek grabbed my arm, steering me toward his car. Get in. We're going somewhere private to discuss your cooperation. I'm not. He opened his jacket, revealing not just his service weapon, but a small black device clipped to his belt. A recording device. Get in the car, Maya, or I walk into that federal building and file formal charges against Ethan. Your choice. 20 minutes later. We sat in an empty parking garage, Derek's car idling in a corner far from security cameras. He'd pulled out a small case from his glove compartment, opening it to reveal a wire professional grade, nearly invisible. You'll wear this tomorrow when you meet Volkov again, Derek said, his fingers already working to untangle the thin cables. I need information on his shipping routes, his contacts in Russia. Anything he says about his operations. This is insane. My voice cracked. You're blackmailing me into committing a federal crime. I'm recruiting you as a confidential informant. Completely legal. He reached for my shirt, and I slapped his hand away. Don't touch me. Something dark flashed in Derek's expression. You've changed. He's already gotten to you, hasn't he? Did he offer you money? Protection. He leaned closer, and I smelled coffee and desperation on his breath. Whatever he promised, it's a lie. Men like Volkov don't keep promises to people like us. People like us. I echoed. You mean people you use? Derek's jaw tightened. I'm trying to save you from making the biggest mistake of your life. Konstantin Volkov is a monster. He's responsible for trafficking, murder, corruption. And you're responsible for lying to me for 2 years, threatening my brother, and turning me into your puppet. The words came out harder than I intended. I saw the file, Derek. I know why you're really doing this. It's not about justice. It's because his company beat yours in a business deal. His expression shuttered. Who told you that? Him? Derek grabbed my shoulders, shaking me slightly. He's manipulating you. Can't you see that? That's what he does. He finds vulnerabilities and exploits them. Like you did. I shoved him back. At least he was honest about it. Derek's control finally snapped. He grabbed the wire, forcibly lifting my shirt hem despite my protests, his fingers cold and impersonal as he taped the device against my ribs. You'll wear this tomorrow. You'll get me what I need. And then Ethan goes free, and you get your normal life back. And if I refuse, then your brother faces federal prosecution, and you become an obstruction of justice charge. He released me, breathing hard. I'm giving you a chance here, Maya. Don't throw it away for a criminal who'll discard you the moment you're no longer useful. I sat in silence as Derek drove me back to my apartment, the wire a cold pressure against my skin, my mind racing. Inside my empty apartment, Ethan's blanket still folded on the couch. His insulin supplies lined up carefully on the kitchen counter. I stared at my phone. Two numbers, two choices. Two men who each claimed to offer protection while demanding my soul in return. But only one had lied to me from the beginning. My hands shook as I reached under my shirt, ripping the wire free. The tape pulled at my skin, leaving red marks. But I didn't care. I crushed the device under my heel, the plastic and circuits cracking with satisfying finality. Then I dialed the number Constantine had written on the back of his business card. He answered on the second ring. "Maya, I'm in," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But I need your help with something first." Constantine's response was immediate and terrifying in its efficiency. "Where are you?" "My apartment. Derek just left. He arrested Ethan. Federal custody," he said, "and I—" "Address." His voice had gone cold, all business. I rattled off my location, hearing him relay orders in rapid Russian to someone in the background. "Stay where you are. Lock your door. I'm sending someone to you now." "Constantine, I destroyed the wire Derek gave me. If he finds out, he won't find out anything except that he made a grave mistake threatening what's mine." The possessive phrasing should have alarmed me, but instead I felt a rush of relief so intense my knees weakened. "Maya, do you trust me?" It was insane. I'd known him for less than 24 hours. But standing in my empty apartment, looking at Ethan's insulin supplies, and feeling the phantom pressure of Derek's hands forcing that wire onto my skin. "Yes," I whispered. "I trust you. Good girl. My people will be there in 10 minutes. 2 hours later, I sat in the back of a black SUV with tinted windows, watching Seattle's lights blur past. The man driving he'd introduced himself only as Alexa had said nothing beyond confirming my identity and ensuring I had everything I needed from my apartment, which wasn't much. A duffel bag of clothes, my laptop, the photo of Ethan and me at his high school graduation. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ethan released. Charges dropped. On his way to a secure location. You'll see him tomorrow. I stared at the message, my hands shaking. Less than 2 hours. Constantine had dismantled Derek's leverage in less than 2 hours. A second text appeared. Derek Chan placed under internal investigation for evidence tampering. Unrelated case. Very unfortunate timing for him. The clinical description didn't hide what had really happened. Constantine had reached into the FBI itself and destroyed Derek's credibility from within. The scope of that power made my mouth go dry. The SUV pulled into an underground garage, security gates closing behind us with solid finality. Alexei guided me to a private elevator that required a keycard, pressing the button for the 18th floor. "Mr. Volkov owns the building," he explained in lightly accented English. "The apartment is secure. 24-hour surveillance on all entrances." The apartment was beautiful hardwood floors, exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Sound. It was easily 3 times the size of the studio I'd shared with Ethan, furnished in clean modern lines that somehow felt warm rather than cold. On the kitchen counter sat bags of groceries, and I recognized the brands Ethan preferred for managing his blood sugar. Constantine had thought of everything. I dropped my duffel bag, exhaustion crashing over me like a wave. The first time in months, maybe years, I had no immediate crisis demanding my attention. No bills screaming from my inbox. No medical emergencies. No ex-boyfriend weaponizing federal authority. I should have felt trapped. Instead, I felt safe. I woke to the smell of coffee brewing and sat up with a start, disoriented by the unfamiliar bedroom. Morning light streamed through windows I'd forgotten to cover, and in my living room, sitting calmly on the sofa with 2 mugs on the coffee table, was Constantine. "How did you?" I pulled the blanket up, suddenly aware I was wearing only a t-shirt and sleep shorts. "I own the building," he reminded me gently. "And you weren't answering your phone. I wanted to make sure you were all right." I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, seeing 3 missed calls from Constantine and 2 from Ethan's number. "Is he?" "He's fine. Staying in a secure location until we ensure Derek has completely backed off. You can see him this afternoon." Constantine gestured to the coffee. "I made it how you take it. Oat milk, no sugar." The casual domesticity of it Him remembering him brewing coffee in my new kitchen, him being here at dawn felt surreal. I pulled on sweatpants and joined him in the living room, accepting the mug with trembling hands. "Thank you," I said quietly. "For Ethan, for all of this. You chose me last night." His grey eyes held mine. "That means you're under my protection now, whether you fully understand what that means or not." "And what does it mean?" Constantine was silent for a long moment, his gaze moving to the windows and the water beyond. "I had a younger sister once, Natalia. She was brilliant, stubborn, too brave for her own good." His voice had gone soft, distant. "Corrupt officials targeted our family when I was building my organization. I thought I'd protected her, moved her somewhere safe. I was wrong." My chest tightened. "What happened?" "They killed her to send me a message." His jaw clenched. "I was 23, and I failed the person who mattered most. Since then, I've sworn I don't fail twice. I don't lose people under my protection." He turned back to me, and the intensity in his eyes stole my breath. "So understand this, Maya. Derek can't touch you now. No one can. You're mine to protect." His voice dropped lower, more intimate. "And I keep what's mine safe." The possessiveness should have frightened me. Instead, I felt something warm unfurl in my chest, something dangerous and addictive. "I'm not your property, Constantine." "No," he agreed, moving closer until I could feel his heat. "You're far more valuable than property." Derek didn't take his loss quietly. 3 days after Ethan's release, I arrived at Pacific Translation Services, the agency where I picked up occasional freelance work to find the owner, Margaret, waiting with her arms crossed and her expression cold. "Maya, we need to talk about your recent conduct." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "A federal agent visited yesterday. Derek Chun. He said you're under investigation for cooperating with organized crime." "Figures." Margaret's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. "He showed me photographs of you entering Konstantin Volkov's building. He said you're unstable, possibly dangerous, and that we should terminate our relationship with you immediately." Heat flooded my face. "Margaret, that's not. Derek is my ex-boyfriend. He's harassing me because I refused to help him with a case. He had a badge. Maya, official documentation." She stepped back as if I might contaminate her. "I can't have this agency associated with federal investigations. I'm sorry, but we're letting you go." I left in a daze, Derek's poison working exactly as he'd intended. By the time I reached Constantine's office, I'd been working there daily, translating documents, learning the rhythms of his organization. I'd received 3 more messages. Clients dropping me, colleagues asking if the rumors were true. Derek was systematically destroying my professional reputation. Constantine took one look at my face and dismissed everyone from the conference room where we'd been working. "What happened?" I told him, my voice shaking with humiliation and rage. "He's telling everyone I'm a criminal, that I'm dangerous. My entire career, everything I've built, will be restored," Constantine said calmly, already reaching for his phone. "I'll have my lawyers send cease and desist letters to everyone Derek contacted. We'll threaten defamation lawsuits if they repeat his lies. That won't. Erase what people believe. Then you build something new." His grey eyes held mine steadily. "You don't need those clients anymore, Maya. You work for me now. Exclusively. Remember?" My phone rang before I could respond. Ethan's number. I answered gratefully, needing to hear his voice, needing the reminder of why I'd made this choice. "Maya?" My brother's voice was tight with fear. "What the hell is going on? Your ex just showed up at my apartment. Derek was there?" Ice flooded my veins. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" "He didn't touch me, but he said, Maya, he said you're working for the Russian mob. He said, this guy you're with is dangerous, that you're in over your head, and I need to convince you to cooperate with the FBI before it's too late." Ethan's voice cracked. "Is any of that true?" Constantine, who'd been listening intently, held out his hand. "May I?" I hesitated only a moment before handing him the phone, watching as he brought it to his ear with the same calm control he applied to everything. Ethan, my name is Konstantin Volkov. His voice was different now, softer, almost gentle, but with an undercurrent of absolute authority. Your sister is safe. She's working for me because I offered her opportunities that her circumstances desperately required. And because Derek Chun spent 2 years manipulating her for his own purposes. I could hear Ethan's faint protests, but Konstantin continued, unruffled. I understand you're frightened. That's natural when federal agents appear at your door spreading lies. But understand this. Maya is under my protection now. Her debts are handled. Your medical care is secured. And any one FBI agent or otherwise who threatens either of you will answer to me, personally. The quiet menace in that last sentence made my breath catch. Your sister chose me, Ethan, not because I forced her, but because I offered her honesty when Derek offered only manipulation. If you care about her well-being, you'll trust her judgment. He paused. And if Derek Chun approaches you again, you'll call this number immediately. Are we clear? Whatever Ethan said must have been agreement because Konstantin nodded and ended the call. When he handed the phone back to me, his expression had softened. He's scared, but he'll be fine. Derek is desperate now. Lashing out. It's almost over. The stress of the past week, the threats, the choices, the constant fear crashed over me all at once. My legs gave out, and I sank into a chair, my hands covering my face as tears I'd been holding back finally broke free. Maya, Konstantin's voice changed, concern bleeding through his control. I'm sorry I choked out. Everything's falling apart and I don't know how to. Warm hands pulled me up and into an embrace I didn't know I needed until it happened. Konstantin's arms came around me, strong and sure, one hand cradling the back of my head as I buried my face in his chest. He smelled like expensive cologne and something warmer underneath, something distinctly him. Tiny odna bolsh, he murmured in Russian, his voice a low rumble against my ear. You're not alone anymore. I have you. I won't let you fall. I should have pulled away. Should have maintained some professional distance. Instead, I let myself lean into his strength, let myself take comfort in the steady beat of his heart beneath my cheek. I keep what's mine safe, he whispered, repeating the words from before. And you're mine now, Maya, whether you're ready to admit it or not. The possessiveness in his voice should have made me recoil. Instead, I felt myself surrendering to it, to him, to this dangerous new reality, where being claimed felt less like captivity and more like coming home. Derek's desperation crossed into recklessness 3 days later. I was in Konstantin's office, translating a contract, when Alexei appeared in the doorway with a tablet. He spoke quickly in Russian, and I caught only fragments. Break-in, old address, police called. Konstantin's expression hardened. Show me. The tablet displayed security footage from my old apartment building, but clear enough. Derek, using a key he must have kept from when we dated, entering my former apartment. The time stamp showed 2:47 a.m. What followed made my stomach turn. Derek systematically destroying the place. Overturning furniture, ripping open drawers, throwing books and papers across the room. He was looking for something, Konstantin said quietly, his voice carrying an edge I'd learned meant someone was about to have a very bad day. Evidence of our arrangement. Proof you were working with me. The neighbors, I started. Called the police at 3:15 a.m. Derek flashed his badge, claimed it was a federal investigation. They let him finish. Konstantin's jaw tightened. But I have better cameras than the building does, and better connections than Derek realizes. He turned to me, and something in his expression made my pulse quicken. How far is he willing to go, Maya? To hurt you? To prove whatever twisted theory he's built in his mind? I thought of Derek's face that night in the parking garage, the manic intensity, the way his hands had shaken when he forced the wire onto my skin. I don't know him anymore. If I ever did, Then it's time you understood what you're really dealing with. Constantine gestured for Alexei to leave, waiting until the door closed before continuing. Derek's obsession with me isn't just professional. 2 years ago, my company outbid Chun Properties, his father's real estate firm, for a port development contract worth $30 million. The deal was legitimate, clean, but it bankrupted his family's business. His father had a heart attack 6 months later. Derek blames me. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. This was never about justice. It's revenge. Revenge dressed in federal authority, Constantine agreed. The most dangerous kind because it's sanctioned, legal. Until it isn't. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Maya, your old landlord called. Said your apartment was broken into. Are you okay? I typed back quickly. I'm fine, not living there anymore. We'll explain later. When I looked up, Constantine was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Come with me tonight. Where? My home. Not the office. Not a safe house. My actual residence. His voice softened slightly. You should see where I live. Understand who I am beyond these walls and business arrangements. The invitation felt weighted with meaning I didn't quite understand, but I found myself nodding. Okay. Constantine's home was nothing like I'd imagined. The building itself was modern, all glass and steel perched on a cliff overlooking Elliott Bay, but inside was surprisingly warm. Hardwood floors, comfortable furniture that looked lived in rather than staged, bookshelves crammed with volumes in Russian and English. Through massive windows, the water stretched dark and endless, city lights reflected on its surface like fallen stars. It's beautiful, I said, meaning it. It's private. He moved to the kitchen, an actual kitchen, not some sterile showpiece, and began pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. And I'm going to make you dinner. Real food, not whatever you've been eating from takeout containers. I watched in amazement as Konstantin Volkov, reputed crime lord, efficiently prepared what turned out to be pelmeni Russian dumplings from scratch. His hands moved with practiced ease, the domestic task at odds with everything I thought I knew about him. My mother taught me, he said, catching my stare, before she died. She said a man who can't feed himself is helpless, and helpless men don't survive. We ate at a small table overlooking the water, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something like peace. The food was perfect, rich and savory, exactly how my grandmother used to make it. Do you regret it? Constantine asked suddenly. Your choice. Choosing me over Derek. I set down my fork, considering the question seriously. My old life was in ruins. My reputation damaged. My apartment destroyed. I'd become complicit in a world I didn't fully understand. Aligned myself with a man who operated outside every law I'd been taught to respect. No, I said, surprising myself with the certainty in my voice. I don't regret it. Something shifted in Constantine's expression, the careful control slipping just enough to show the hunger beneath. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine, and the contact sent electricity up my arm. Maya, his voice had gone rough, intimate in a way that made heat pool low in my belly. His phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Constantine's expression darkened as he read the message, his fingers tightening on mine before releasing. Derek just filed an official complaint against you with the FBI. Claims you're an accessory to racketeering. He stood, controlled fury radiating from every line of his body. He's crossed a line he won't come back from. Derek's message arrived at 6:23 a.m. Waking me in Constantine's guest room where I'd spent the night after dinner ran late. I'm sorry. For everything. Can we talk? Just the two of us. I need to apologize properly. Please, Maya, one conversation to end this the right way. I stared at my phone, recognizing the manipulation but feeling an obligation I couldn't quite shake. This man had been part of my life for 2 years. Maybe he deserved a chance to hear my rejection from my own lips, to understand that he'd destroyed any possibility of reconciliation. Constantine found me in the kitchen 20 minutes later, already dressed for the day, his expression darkening as he read the message over my shoulder. No, I need closure, I said quietly. I need to face him and end this definitively. It's a trap, Maya. Derek is unraveling. Desperate men are dangerous, which is why I'll meet him somewhere public. Volunteer Park. Midday. Plenty of witnesses. I turned to face Constantine, seeing the storm building in his grey eyes. I can't hide from him forever. And maybe if he hears it from me, really hears it, he'll finally stop. Constantine's jaw clenched, but he nodded slowly. Fine. But on my terms. Alexei and 2 others will be within 50 feet at all times. And I'll be watching. Constantine, those are my conditions. His voice brooked no argument. You're under my protection. That means you don't face threats alone, even when you think you need to. Derek was waiting on a bench overlooking the reservoir when I arrived just after noon. He looked worse than I'd ever seen him. Shaven, his suit rumpled. Dark circles under eyes that were too bright, too intense. He stood when he saw me, and I noticed his hands shaking. Maya, thank you for coming. His smile was wrong, strained. I wasn't sure you would. You said you wanted to apologize. I remained standing, keeping distance between us. Around the park, I could sense Constantine's men positioned strategically. And somewhere, I knew he was watching. I do. Derek ran a hand through his hair, a nervous gesture I remembered from better times. I've been thinking about everything that's happened, about us, and I realize I pushed too hard. I let my feelings, my need to protect you, cloud my judgment. Protect me. The words came out sharper than intended. Derek, you threatened my brother. You tried to blackmail me into wearing a wire. You destroyed my apartment and my professional reputation. Because I love you. The words erupted from him, desperate and raw. I never stopped loving you, Maya. And watching you throw yourself at that Russian criminal, letting him manipulate you with money and empty promises. He didn't manipulate me. You did. I took a step back, suddenly aware of how alone we were in this section of the park. For 2 years, you used me. I saw the file, Derek. The emails where you called me an asset to cultivate. Our entire relationship was a lie. His expression twisted. That was just work documentation. It meant exactly what it said. My voice steadied. I was a means to an end, a way to get to Constantine. And when that didn't work, you threatened the only family I have left. I was trying to save you. Derek moved closer, and I saw something unhinged in his eyes. From him, from yourself. You're not thinking clearly. He has brainwashed you. Bought your loyalty like he buys everything. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years. I stood my ground despite my racing heart. And what I see is a man who claims to love me while destroying everything I care about. That's not love, Derek. That's obsession. You're choosing him. Derek's voice rose, drawing stares from nearby joggers. A monster? A criminal? Over me? I'm choosing myself, I said quietly. And yes, I'm choosing Constantine, because at least he was honest about what he wanted from me. Derek's face contorted with rage. In one swift motion, he grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. You destroyed my career, my case, my life. You don't get to just walk away. Let her go. Constantine's voice, cold and lethal, came from behind Derek. Now. Derek spun, keeping his grip on my arm, and I saw his other hand move toward his waistband, toward his service weapon. Stay back, Volkov. I'm a federal agent. You assault me and what? Constantine moved closer with predatory grace, and suddenly Alexei and 2 other men materialized from the surrounding trees. You'll arrest me. With what authority? You're under investigation yourself. Your badge means nothing. It means more than your blood money. Derek's grip on my arm tightened painfully. She's coming with me. I'll put her in protective custody where she belongs. Away from you. I drove my elbow hard into Derek's ribs, exactly as Constantine's security team had taught me over the past week. His grip loosened and I twisted away, stumbling toward Constantine. In the 2 seconds it took Derek to recover, Constantine closed the distance. His hand shot out, catching Derek's wrist as he reached for his weapon, twisting with controlled violence until Derek gasped and released the gun. It clattered to the pavement, Touch her again, Constantine said softly, his voice carrying more menace than any shout. And you'll discover that federal badges mean nothing in the dark. Derek stumbled backward, clutching his wrist, his face twisted with impotent rage and something like fear. Back at Constantine's home, I sat on the edge of his bathroom counter while he gently examined my arm. Derek's fingerprints were already darkening into bruises, 5 distinct marks against my pale skin. Does it hurt? Constantine's voice was carefully controlled, but I felt the fury radiating beneath. Not much. A lie. It throbbed with every heartbeat. He retrieved ice from the kitchen, wrapping it in a towel with surprising gentleness before pressing it to my arm. His phone buzzed repeatedly, but he ignored it, his full attention on me. I should have stopped him sooner, he said quietly. Before he touched you, you gave me the space I asked for. I met his eyes. And I handled it. Something like pride flickered in his expression. Yes, you did. His phone buzzed again, insistent. This time he answered, speaking rapid Russian as he moved toward the living room. I understood enough to catch key phrases. Permanent solution. Can't be traced. Make an example. He was arranging something for Derek. Something final. I should have been horrified. Should have stopped him. Insisted there had to be another way. But as I looked down at the bruises forming on my arm, remembering the unhinged rage in Derek's eyes, the way his hand had moved toward his gun, I felt only relief. When Constantine finished his calls, he found me on the terrace overlooking the bay. The afternoon sun was breaking through Seattle's perpetual clouds, turning the water silver gold. I heard him approach but didn't turn, my hands gripping the railing. He won't bother you again, Constantine said simply. I know. My voice was steadier than I expected, and I should ask what that means. Should demand to know what you're planning. I finally turned to face him, but I won't. Constantine studied me, and I saw the question in his eyes. What am I to you, Constantine? The words spilled out before I could stop them. Really? Am I just another asset? Someone useful who happened to make the right choice? Or you were supposed to be? He closed the distance between us, and I felt his heat, his presence overwhelming my senses. A translator. Competent and temporary. Someone I could use and compensate and eventually release when she was no longer needed. My heart sank even as I'd braced for those words. But then you did something no one else has done in 10 years. His hand rose to cut my face, thumb tracing my cheekbone. You walked away from safety to stand with me. You chose me when everyone else. Everyone. Maya chooses fear. His grey eyes held mine, and I saw something raw and vulnerable beneath his control. You were supposed to be forgettable. Instead, I find myself thinking about you every moment you're not near, wanting to know your thoughts, hear your voice, see you safe and whole in mine. His voice dropped lower, more intimate. You're not an asset, Maya. You're what? I whispered. Everything I didn't know I needed. The confession seemed torn from him. And I'm yours if you'll have a man like me. A man who does terrible things in the dark. A man who'll never be what society calls good. I should have been afraid of the intensity in his eyes, the possessive way his hand cradled my face. Instead, I felt something unfurl in my chests, something fierce and dangerous and utterly right. I'm not who I was a week ago, I said quietly. That woman who believed in neat, moral lines, who thought the law was always just. She's gone, Constantine, and I don't miss her. Maya, I choose you. The words came out stronger than I intended. Not because I have to, not because you're paying me or protecting me. I choose you because you're the first person who's been completely honest with me. Because you see me, really see me, and don't try to change what you find. Something shifted in Constantine's expression, the careful control finally cracking. Do you understand what you're saying? What it means to stand beside me? I'm saying I don't want to go back. I stepped closer, closing the last distance between us. I want this. You. All of it. Even the parts that should terrify me. The kiss, when it came, was both fierce and gentle. His mouth claimed mine with unmistakable possession, his hand sliding into my hair, angling my head exactly where he wanted it. But beneath the hunger was tenderness, a reverence that made my chest ache. I kissed him back with everything I had, pouring weeks of tension and fear and desperate attraction into the contact. His other arm banded around my waist, pulling me flush against him, and I felt his heart racing as fast as mine. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Constantine rested his forehead against mine. "You're mine now," he whispered in Russian. "Moya, and I'm yours, completely." "Yes," I breathed, accepting the truth I'd been fighting since that first day in his office. His phone buzzed again, shattering the moment. Constantine pulled back reluctantly, glancing at the screen. His expression hardened. "What is it?" "Derek." His voice had gone cold. "Just leaked a story to the press. About you, about me? About our criminal conspiracy?" He showed me the Screen A breaking news alert with my name in the headline. The vendetta wasn't over. If anything, Derek had just made it public. The article went viral within hours. FBI informant or mob mistress. Seattle Translator's dangerous liaison with suspected crime lord Derek had given them everything. Photos of me entering. Constantine's building, my name, my background. Carefully worded accusations designed to destroy what remained of my reputation, while painting himself as a concerned federal agent trying to save a misguided woman. "He's painting a target on your back," Constantine said, his voice deadly calm as we watched the story spread across news sites. From my enemies, from law enforcement, from everyone. I stared at my laptop screen, watching my life become a public spectacle. My phone exploded with messages, former classmates, old colleagues, even my grandmother's friends from the Russian community, all asking if it was true, if I was really involved with the Bratva. "He's made it impossible for you to go back," Constantine continued, and something in his tone made me look up. "To your old life, your old identity. Even if you wanted to." The implication hung between us. Derek had forced the choice Constantine had been too careful to demand. "What about you?" I asked. "This article accuses you of nothing I haven't been accused of before." He closed the laptop with controlled precision. "My lawyers are already drafting responses. By tomorrow, Derek Chun will be facing defamation charges, additional corruption investigations, and very pointed questions about his obsessive behavior toward a civilian. That won't erase what people believe. No." Constantine moved to stand before me, his grey eyes searching mine. "Which is why I'm offering you a choice, Maya. One final time." My heart stuttered. "What choice?" "I can relocate you. New city, new identity, new life. My resources can make you disappear so thoroughly that Derek's article becomes meaningless. You'll be safe, free, able to start over completely." His jaw tightened. "Oh, you can stay with me, fully, completely, knowing that your name is now permanently linked to mine, that there's no going back to who you were." I thought of that woman, the struggling translator, the invisible freelancer, the person who'd believed moral lines were clear and choices were simple. Derek's article had killed her as surely as a bullet, and I realized I didn't mourn her loss. "I'm not going anywhere," I said quietly. "Except wherever you're going." Something like relief flashed across Constantine's face. "Moscow. I have business with the families there that can't wait. Meetings that will determine the next 5 years of my operations." He paused. "I want you with me. As my translator, yes, but more than that. As my partner, my equal. When do we leave?" "Tomorrow night." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "But first, I need you to understand what standing beside me means." Inside was a simple silver ring, elegant and unadorned except for a small inscription in Russian. "Tai moya, ya tvo." "You're mine, I'm yours." "Not a cage," Constantine said softly, slipping it onto my finger. "A promise. That I will protect you, provide for you, stand with you, against everything that comes. And in return, you have my loyalty." I looked up at him, seeing the vulnerable hope in his eyes. My trust. My partnership. It's all of it. Even knowing what I am, what I do. I thought of Derek's unhinged desperation, his willingness to destroy me rather than lose control. I thought of Constantine's brutal honesty, his protection, the way he'd moved heaven and earth to keep Ethan safe, especially knowing what you are. I rose on my toes, pressing my lips to his. Because the wolf may be dangerous, but at least his teeth are real. Constantine's laugh was surprised and genuine, transforming his harsh features. You're extraordinary, Maya-chan, not Chan. I looked down at the ring on my finger. Not anymore. That woman chose the FBI agent and believed in neat moral lines. I'm someone new now. And who are you? I met his eyes steadily. The woman who chose the wolf, and doesn't regret it for a second. 24 hours later, we sat in Constantine's private jet as Seattle disappeared below us, replaced by clouds and endless sky. Ethan was settled in a secure apartment with around-the-clock medical care, his insulin supplied for the next 5 years. My grandmother would receive the best oncology treatment money could buy, and Derek Chun was facing federal corruption charges that would occupy him for years. Constantine had kept every promise. I watched Russia approaching through the window, my grandmother's homeland, now mine again in a way I'd never imagined. Constantine's hand found mine, his thumb tracing the silver ring he'd placed there. Regrets? He asked quietly. I thought of the woman I'd been just 2 weeks ago, struggling, invisible, drowning in debts and broken dreams. I thought of the choice Derek had demanded, betray a stranger or watch my brother suffer. And I thought of the choice I'd made instead, trust the man who told me the truth, even when that truth was dangerous. No regrets, I said, meaning it completely. Just clarity. Constantine raised my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. Welcome to your new life, Maya Libov. I leaned into him, feeling his arm come around me, protective and possessive and exactly right. Below us, the world I'd known receded into memory. Ahead lay Moscow, danger, a life I couldn't fully imagine. But I'd chosen it. Chosen him. Chosen myself, finally, over everyone else's expectations. I'd spoken Russian to the mafia boss, and in doing so I'd freed myself from the cage of my old life. The golden cage I'd entered might have its own dangers, its own compromises, its own moral grey zones, but it was mine. And so was he. The wolf had his partner, and she had hers.